So, good morning, all. Can you hear me? Okay, fine. So, so today we'll discuss about vSphere fault tolerance. So, in this lesson, we are going to discuss about introduction to vSphere fault tolerance. So, by end of this lesson, you are going to learn list VMware vSphere fault tolerance requirements and limitations. Describe vSphere fault tolerance operations. Okay. So, vSphere fault tolerance. So vSphere fault tolerance provides instantaneous failure and continuous availability. So zero downtime, zero data loss, no loss of TCP connection. So whereas if you guys are seeing this picture, you are having two ESXi hosts. On top of that, you are having primary virtual machine and secondary virtual machine. And between VMs, you are having a relation. One is instantaneous failover, and the second one is fast checking point. So let me explain about this. You can use the vSphere fault tolerance for virtual machines to ensure business continuity with higher level availability and data protection than is offered by your vSphere HA. In the sense, HA you need minimal downtime. Whenever there is a event happened on the vSphere HA cluster node environment, so it's need minimal downtime to power on or shut down or leave powered on state of your virtual machine into your failover node. But whereas coming to the vSphere fault tolerance, if there are any hardware event happened on your ESXi host, which is enabled fault tolerance enabled feature ESXi host, the virtual machines are protected into the same configuration ESXi host in another location or another data center or in same data center. Okay, so the base machine wherever installed the primary virtual machine is installed on ESXi host, that will be called our primary data center or primary ESXi host. Okay, and whatever configuration is there on this ESXi host, the same make, model, memory, same similar ESXi host, you have to use it. Even processor also you have to use it the same processor. Okay, so there should not be any differences. Same hardware we need to use to implement our vSphere fault tolerance. Okay. So vSphere fault tolerance is built on the ESXi host platform. vSphere fault tolerance provides continuous availability by having identical virtual machines runs on a separate host. Okay. Whenever you enable the vSphere fault tolerance on your primary ESXi node and primary virtual machine, so it will create a copy of virtual machine on your destination ESXi host. That's called secondary virtual machine. Whatever data is updating on your primary virtualization, same data will be updated on your secondary virtual machine. But this virtual machine, secondary virtual machine state will be suspended state. Okay. Whenever this particular virtual machine is done with the hardware issues on this particular ESXi host, the primary virtual machine's downs, immediately your secondary virtual machine will be up. Okay, so it will take only a nano milliseconds. Okay, even if you are already connected, if you are as a user, you are already connected to your server or virtual machine, and there was some hardware impact was happened on here. Immediately, your suspended virtual machine comes to the online. Even you don't have any network loss or any RDP disconnections. Whatever application you are doing, whatever data you are modifying, the same screen will be comes to your RDP session. So that is the reason here they are saying zero downtime. Even if there are any failures happened on your ESXi host also, your virtual machine will be available without any downtime. Okay. At the same time, zero data loss. So you are not having any data loss during this process, during this uh, powering on or suspended state virtual machine coming back state. So you are not having any data loss. In normally, if you take the vSphere HA, your virtual machine will be powered on or power off or shut down state will be there. But here you are not having any states. Whatever state is their primary virtual machine, the same state will be comes into the online. Your system will be comes to online. And even though if there are any 10 virtual machines or sorry 10 tasks are opened on your primary virtual machine, you are doing some changes on your .NET program and whatever application is there on this VM. The same will be appear as well as whatever console is opened here, the same console will be open here also. Okay, for example, if you are open a notepad and you are doing some data update, the same screen appears here and the data will be there. You have to just continue your work here. So that is the reason here we are saying zero data loss. Even whatever RTP connection you have connected in your failure ESXi host and VM, even if it is enabled with the FT in the secondary host and secondary virtual machine will launch the RTP session and you won't have any network loss or TCP connection disconnections. Okay, so compared to HA and fault tolerance, in HA you need minimal downtime. Your virtual machine need to be power on or say shut down or leave powered on state on from source to destination host whenever a event occurred on your HA enabled cluster. Whereas coming to the fault tolerance, it's not like that. It's not required any downtime to migrate to power on or shut down or to whatever state is there of your virtual machine. To do that, it's not required any downtime, and whatever consoles, application consoles are opened and whatever data you are modifying on this virtual machine, the same will be appear on your secondary virtual machine and there won't be any data loss. And TCP IP connection. So you are connected RDP session. Sorry. And whenever there are hardware events or software events happened on your failure fault tolerance enabled ESXi host. So in the destination mission, the virtual mission will be come back online and you can able to connect RDP session without any disconnections of your earlier RDP session. Okay. Any questions on this slide?
హలో అన్నా
చెప్పండి శివన్.
హలో
7.
అన్న ఇప్పుడు మీరు అన్నారు కదా రియల్ టైంలో హెచ్ఏ యూజ్ చేస్తాం మనము ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ యూజ్ చేయము ఎక్కడగా అనేసి.
అవునండి.
బట్ మనకి హెచ్ఏతో పోలిస్తే మనకి ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ జీరో డౌన్ టైం ఉంది, జీరో డేటా లాస్ ఇవన్నీ ఉన్నాయి కదన్నా.
అవునండి.
మరి ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఎందుకు యూజ్ చేయరన్నా, దానికి దీనికి డిఫరెన్స్?
So the challenge here is whatever hardware you are using. So in fault tolerance, let me explain the prerequisites so that you can understand, you can get the answer for your question. Okay, in next slides I am going to explain requirements. There your question will be answered. Okay.
ఓకే.
Any other questions about this? The same concept is applicable in your site recovery manager also. Okay, site recovery manager is nothing but your disaster recovery center concept in your real-time environment. Okay, but VMware was introduced that product that is called a site recovery manager. So in site recovery manager, assume this is the first site. Your virtual machines will be protected mode. Assume this is a second site. Whatever protected virtual machines are there, those will be provisioned here in destination data center. Whenever your primary data center goes down, the virtual machines will be available from your disaster recovery center or site recovery manager center. Okay. Anyways, we'll discuss later. So I move to the next slide. So vSphere fault tolerant features. vSphere fault tolerance features are vSphere fault tolerance protects mission critical high performance applications regardless of the operating system used. Irrespective of any operating system, it provides a protection for your guest operating systems. It might be Linux, it might be Windows, it might be Unix, whatever operating system your guest OS is supporting. So those operating systems will be supported by your fault tolerance. Okay. And vSphere fault tolerance supports 4 virtual CPUs of VM, and it supports 64 GB of memory. Supports VMware vSphere vMotion for primary and secondary virtual machines. Creates a secondary copy of all virtual machine files, including disks. Provides fast checkpoint copying to keep primary and secondary CPUs synchronized. Okay. So fault tolerance will be enabled on your virtual machines layer, but the feature you have to enable on your ESXi host end. Then it will ask you on which virtual machines you are protecting or you are enabling fault tolerance feature. Then it will support the fault tolerance supports that particular virtual machines. Maximum hardware is 4 virtual CPUs it supports maximum, and 64 GB of memory VM. Even in your VMware environment, whatever management features are there like vMotion. Okay, so those functionality supported by your fault tolerance for primary and secondary virtual machines. Creates a secondary copy of all virtual machine files, including disk files also. It means whenever you enable the fault tolerance, by default whatever virtual machines you protected using the fault tolerance, those virtual machines will be create a secondary virtual machines copy on your destination ESXi host. Okay. At the same time, you can able to perform virtual vMotion task between these two ESXi hosts of primary virtual machine and secondary virtual machines. Okay. Even it copies all virtual machine files includes your virtual machine disk files also, VMDK files also. And provides fast checkpoint. This is a feature inbuilt in of your fault tolerance. Okay, this fast checkpoint, what it will do is it keeps updating or copying primary and secondary CPU's tasks. Whatever tasks are there in your CPU, those tasks will be updated from primary and secondary virtual machine CPUs using fast checkpoint feature. Any questions on this slide? Okay. So still there are a few more features. And FT supports thin Trojan disks, memory virtualization hardware assistant, and enhanced vMotion compatibility clusters. So your fault tolerance supports thin Trojan disks of your virtual machines and memory virtualization hardware assistant, in the sense even if you are enabled nested virtualization environment also, your fault tolerance will be supported. And wherever enhanced vMotion compatibility ESXi clusters are there in your environment, so those EVC enabled clusters also you can able to enable fault tolerance. But you will see the performance issues if you use the enhanced vMotion compatibility clusters in your environment when you enable the fault tolerance features. Okay, so any doubts? So I'm moving to the next slide. So how your fault tolerance works with vSphere high availability and vSphere distributed resource scheduler. So vSphere fault tolerance works with vSphere HA and vSphere DRS enabled clusters. So in vSphere HA, your fault tolerance is required for a vSphere fault tolerance feature need to be enabled. It restarts failed virtual machines. In vSphere fault tolerance, by default, it is aware if any protection virtual machines are failed and it will immediately takes the action. Okay, so DRS selects the virtual machine location at power on, does not balance fault tolerant virtual machines in a balanced cluster. So these conditions applies when you enable the fault tolerance on your HA and DRS enabled ESXi cluster. Okay, so in the sense, whenever, for example, there are some events are happened, this host is failed, primary virtual machine which is enabled the fault tolerance, that host was failed. So your DRS or HA try to power on this primary machine from here. If you enable that, that will not accept, your fault tolerance will not accept because it's having secondary copy of this primary machine. So that is the reason it won't allow you, as well as when you enable on ESXi cluster which is enabled HA and DRS features, your DRS won't migrate this mission to primary mission to secondary mission, wherever secondary mission's Trojan host. Shall I repeat? Okay. So assume this is a fault tolerance enabled cluster. Fault tolerance HA DRS enabled clusters. Okay. If you enable fault tolerance along with HA and DRS, and your primary mission, whatever protected mission is there on your ESXi host, this ESXi host was failed. Okay, so some reason, hardware or software failures reason, this host was down. During that time, your DRS or HA will not power on your primary virtual machine, on your secondary virtual machine wherever it is present on ESXi host. In the sense, whenever you enabled a fault tolerance for any of these virtual machines, immediately it will create a replica of another copy virtual machine in your fault tolerance enabled destination host. Okay, so these both hosts are into a, let me draw a diagram. I am implementing a ESXi cluster. So what are the minimum requirements to enable a ESXi cluster, to implement a ESXi cluster? Minimum 2 ESXi hosts are required to implement ESXi cluster, and I have a couple of virtual machines. So from ESXi 5.5 onwards, you no need to deploy a shared storage to implement your ESXi cluster. Okay. So to implement HA availability, what are the requirements? What are the requirements to implement HA?
Static IP DHCP, at least one network management.
At least?
One network management need to
Okay.
be
Okay.
possible.
Okay.
Mm,
So those are your ESXi deployment, you have to do that.
yes.
Okay. Okay. So whenever you wanted to apply or implement HA, you need shared data store. First thing. But to implement ESXi cluster, you don't need to deploy your shared storage. But whenever you are implementing HA, it is mandatory that you have to enable shared storage. Then only it will power on the virtual machine from one host to another host, irrespective of storage, wherever your virtual machine is present. It means whichever shared storage it is present. Okay, fine. So I have enabled, these are my management features. So HA, I enable this virtual machine whenever there are hardware events are happened here. By default behavior is there are three conditions are there, that is three administration policies or three HA rules are there. This virtual machine might be power on this ESXi host or shut down on this, whatever state is there here. The same state will be based on your HA rule. Based on that rule, it will be powered on or shut down or leave powered on state. It will be placed on your destination or failover host. Is that right? Is that HA behavior? Are you guys are able to follow me? Yeah, fine. Then, so that is HA functionality. Whenever a host is failed with hardware or software issues, the registered virtual machines will be located or placed into your destination or failover node. Okay, so this is HA functionality. It means it is unregistering on your ESXi host which is impacted, and it is registering on your failover node. This is what takes by your HA. For this you need minimal downtime, and at the same time whatever data unsaved data is there on your virtual machine, that will be lost, and RDP connection also lost. Once it is registered on your destination host, once it is powered on, then you can able to establish the RDP connection. Then it will boot the operating system, guest operating system files, and then you can able to take the RDP. Okay, so till that, are you guys have any confusion? Till now I explained about HA functionality. Okay, now I implemented DRS on this cluster. So whatever prerequisites are made for my HA, that is sufficient to implement my DRS, distributed resource scheduler. What this DRS will do is, during this event, or leave about that event portion. So whenever there is a resource crunch happened on your ESXi01, your DRS enabled feature enabled cluster will load balance between these two ESXi hosts. That load balance is resource. It means these two ESXi hosts merged as a single pool, and whatever resource is there on these two ESXi host, it will be present as a pool of resource for your virtual machines. That is the reason whenever there is a resource crunch happened on your ESXi01 and there is a sufficient resource is available to handle this resource issue on your ESXi02, your DRS will take ownership and it will migrate this particular virtual machine into your ESXi02. So there are three rules are there on your DRS, that is automation, fully automated, partially automated and manual. Based on these behaviors, it might be ask your permission to migrate your virtual machine from ESXi1 to ESXi2 whenever there is a resource crunch is happened. Okay, that will take care by your DRS. So the migration portion will be taken by your vMotion. Your DRS will have by default internal plugin as a vMotion. That is the reason whenever there is a resource crunch happened on your ESXi01, it will identify and it will identify in which ESXi host FreeROS is available to place this virtual machine. Once it is identified, and your DRS internal vMotion plugin will start function and it will migrate to destination host. So this is about DRS function. Is that clear to everyone? Any questions? Okay. Now I am enabling fault tolerance on my fault tolerance. Let me briefly explain about this once again. So to enable fault tolerance on HADRS enabled cluster, whatever statements is given here. So whenever you enable the fault tolerance by default, it will, for whatever missions you wanted to enable fault tolerance, that will be considered as a protected virtual mission, and immediately whenever you enable the fault tolerance, it will create a duplicate virtual mission on your destination ESXi host, which is enabled with the fault tolerance. Okay, so in this feature, protected virtual mission is called primary virtual mission, and whatever copied virtual mission is called secondary virtual mission. Okay, you are having same data, same configurations, and same guest OS will be there. It just copied this secondary virtual machine file whenever you enable the fault tolerance feature on this particular ESXi host. And your fault tolerance feature, consider this is a primary virtual machine, and whatever copied virtual machine there on the secondary, that is called secondary virtual machine. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, now in this model, whenever there is a resource crunch happened on this ESXi host 01, which is enabled with the fault tolerance feature and HADRS features. Okay, so most of the cases various virtual missions also there. Some reason this virtual mission has some resource crunch issue. During this time, as per the DRS behavior, this has to migrate to your destination ESXi host, or wherever resource is free, there your DRS has to place this primary virtual machine. Am I right? Okay, that is default behavior of your DRS, but here you are having challenge. When you enable the fault tolerance, you can't migrate your primary or protected virtual machine into a copied or secondary virtual machine placed host. Is it clear to everyone? This is a default behavior of your fault tolerance enabled ESX a cluster environment. The major disadvantage is we are enabling fault tolerance feature is whenever there is a host failover, secondary should be enabled, secondary should be available without any downtime. That is what your fault tolerance is providing, right? So in this model, in this environment, or in this feature enabled fault tolerance enabled environment, that is the reason it is not migrating to your secondary virtual machine ESXi host. Why? Because even this ESXi host also gone due to some reason. Then your entire virtual machine will be, you will be lost the connectivity, right? But as per the fault tolerance feature, it has zero downtime, it has zero data loss, and it has no TCP/IP connection loss features, right? So to provide those, this primary mission won't be migrated to your secondary virtual machines, which is enable the copy of your primary virtual machine. That is the reason your FT won't allow, as well as it talks to DRS and says that don't copy my primary protected virtual machines to wherever copied secondary virtual machines ESXi host during the resource crunch. So that instructions provided by your FT between DRS. That the instructions passes between these two components, FT and DRS. To achieve VMware fault tolerance features, it passes the information to DRS, says that don't migrate, don't place the primary and secondary virtual machine on a single ESXi host. FT won't accept that. Why? Because if this host also down, your both primary and secondary virtual machines gone, then you won't achieve zero downtime, zero data loss, and TCP/IP connectivity loss. Any questions?
బట్ డిఆర్ఎస్ కూడా అంతే కదన్నా, ఒకవేళ ఇప్పుడు రెండు ESXi హోస్ట్లు డౌన్ అయినప్పుడు మొత్తం డౌన్ అవుతుంది కదా.
ఇంకా కేసులో మనం ఏం చేయలేం. సో ఫిజికల్ హార్డ్వేర్ ప్రాబ్లం ఉండి రెండు ESX క్లస్టర్లే ఉంటే గనక PSOD అక్కడైతే మనం ఏం చేయలేం. ఈవెన్ ఇన్ దట్ కేస్ ఆల్సో, ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ కేస్ ఆల్సో, మీరు ESXi హోస్ట్లు రెండు డౌన్ అయితే మనం ఏం చేయలేం. We can't assume, right?
Yes.
రెండు ఒకేసారి డౌన్ అయితే అని చెప్పేసి.
ఓకే, బట్ ఇది FT కొద్దిగా లిటిల్ బిట్ కన్ఫ్యూజన్ ఉందన్న. ఇప్పుడు డిఆర్ఎస్ ఎనేబుల్ చేసి FT ఎనేబుల్ చేసాము అంటే కనుక మనము, మీరు అంటుండేది ఇప్పుడు ప్రైమరీ నుండి సెకండరీకి మనకు విమోషన్ జరగదు అంటున్నారు. ఎందుకంటే కాపీ మళ్ళీ సేమ్ ఇందులో ఉన్న ఫైల్స్ అన్ని అక్కడ కాపీ అవుతాయి అనేసి, కాన్ఫ్లిక్ట్ వస్తుంది అనేసి, అదే మీరు అంటున్నది.
ఫైల్స్ ఎప్పుడైతే మీరు ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ కి FT ఎనేబుల్ చేశారో, లీవ్ అవుట్ ప్రైమరీ కాన్సెప్ట్, ఇది ఒక వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ ఈ ESXi హోస్ట్ లో. ఓకే, మీరు ఎప్పుడైతే FT ఎనేబుల్ చేశారో ఈ FT ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ కింద బిహేవ్ చేస్తుంది. అండ్ మీరు ఈ డెస్టినేషన్ ESXi హోస్ట్ ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఎనేబుల్ చేసేటప్పుడు ఏంటంటే మీరు డెస్టినేషన్ ESXi హోస్ట్ కూడా డిప్లాయ్ చేయాలి. ఈ సేమ్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ ఉండాలి. ESXi 01 ఏ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ అయితే ఉందో అదే మేక్ అండ్ మోడల్ యూజ్ చేయాలి. దట్ ఈస్ మ్యాండేట్. ఓకే, అండ్ ఈ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ కి మీరు FT ఎనేబుల్ చేసినప్పుడు సేమ్ డేటా వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ ఫైల్స్ యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎక్స్ కాపీ యూ కెన్ సే. సో మిర్రర్ అవుతుంది, ఇక్కడికి ఇంకో వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ క్రియేట్ అవుతుంది సెకండరీ హోస్ట్ లో. ESXi 02 లో ఇంకొక VM క్రియేట్ అవుతుంది, దాన్ని సెకండరీ VM అంటాం, ఈ ప్రైమరీకి కాపీని.
ఓకే,
క్లియర్? నౌ the point is, if this host is down, ఇప్పుడు DRS కనుక ఈ హోస్ట్ ని ఇందులోకి మైగ్రేట్ చేస్తే ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే ఈ హోస్ట్ కూడా డౌన్ అయితే మీకు ఈ రెండు వర్చువల్ మిషన్స్ అవైలబుల్ ఉండవు నెట్వర్క్ లో. అప్పుడు మీరు vSphere ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఫీచర్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో, జీరో డౌన్ టైం, మీరు చెప్తున్నారు ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఎనేబుల్ చేసేటప్పుడు నేను ఈ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ ని ప్రొటెక్ట్ చేసి జీరో డౌన్ టైం తో ప్రొవైడ్ చేస్తాను అంటే ఇంకా వర్చువల్ మిషన్ 24/7 రన్ అవుతూనే ఉంటది, అవైలబిలిటీ ఉంటది యూజర్స్ కి, అండ్ డేటా లాస్ కూడా ఏముండదు. ఈవెంట్ ఏదైనా జరిగినప్పుడు, అంటే ఇట్ మైట్ బి హార్డ్వేర్ ఆర్ సాఫ్ట్వేర్ ఇష్యూ, యువర్ హైపర్వైజర్ వర్క్ డౌన్, ఈవెన్ దో యువర్ virtual machine is available from here itself. Okay, whenever you enable the FT itself, it's provisioned a virtual machine, same copy of virtual machines. It won't copy, it will provision a virtual machine with the same configuration. Okay, simple thing. DNS and additional domain controller. Your domain controller and additional domain controller concept here also. ఓకే, ఇక్కడ రిప్లికేషన్ జరుగుతూ ఉంటుంది. మీ ఆబ్జెక్ట్స్ ఏవైతే అప్డేట్ అవుతాయో డిఎన్ఎస్ లో సేమ్ థింగ్ ఇక్కడికి రిప్లికేషన్ అవుతూ ఉంటాయి. అవునా?
అవును.
డొమైన్ కంట్రోలర్ ఏఐడి కాన్సెప్ట్ లో సేమ్ యాజ్ ఇక్కడ కూడా ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ కి సెకండరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ కి 24/7 మీ ఫాస్ట్ చెక్ పాయింట్ అనే ఫీచర్ ద్వారా మీకు సిపియు ప్రాసెస్ అంతా కూడా ఈ రెండు వర్చువల్ మెషిన్స్ కి కమ్యూనికేట్ అవుతూ ఉంటుంది. మీకు మళ్ళీ కమ్ బ్యాక్ టు యువర్ ఎర్లియర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, డిఎన్ఎస్ డొమైన్ కంట్రోలర్ అండ్ అడిషనల్ డొమైన్ కంట్రోల్ సినారియోలో డొమైన్ కంట్రోలర్ డౌన్ అయితే అడిషనల్ కంట్రోలర్ డొమైన్ కంట్రోలర్ గా బిహేవ్ చేస్తుంది, రైట్? ఇట్ బికమ్స్ ఏ డొమైన్ కంట్రోలర్. సేమ్ యాజ్ ఇక్కడ కూడా ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ డౌన్ అయినప్పుడు సెకండరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మెషిన్ గా బిహేవ్ చేస్తుంది. బికాస్ యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ రిప్లికేటింగ్ ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీ టాస్క్ on this particular primary virtual machine, everything will be stored on your secondary virtual machine. ఈ సెకండరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ ఏంటంటే సస్పెండ్ స్టేట్ లో ఇట్ విల్ యాక్సెప్ట్ ఆల్ ద డేటా ఫ్రమ్ యువర్ ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్. అది క్లియరా? కన్ఫ్యూజన్? సో ఓకే, అప్పుడైతే ఏమవుతుందంటే మీ ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ డౌన్ అయినప్పుడు ఇట్స్ నానో మిల్లీ సెకండ్స్. యూ డజంట్ నో ఇది ఏమవుతుందంటే ఫ్లిప్ అవుతుంది కనెక్షన్. నీకు ఆ ఫ్లిప్ అయిన డ్రాప్ కూడా మీకు యూ కాంట్ సీ దట్. మీరు ఆర్టీపీ కనెక్ట్ అయి ఉన్నారు ఈ ప్రైమరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ కి, ఎఫ్టీపీ ఎనేబుల్ చేసిన దానికి. సో ఈ హోస్ట్ డౌన్ అయింది అండ్ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ కూడా డౌన్ అయిపోతుంది ఆబ్వియస్ గా. బట్ ఈ డెస్టినేషన్ ఉంటుంది ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ లో ఎనేబుల్ చేసి బై డిఫాల్ట్. అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుంది అంటే ఎప్పుడైతే ఇది ఆఫ్లైన్కి వెళ్ళిపోయిందని ఈ మిషన్ కి తెలిసిందో ఇమీడియట్ గా ఇట్స్ కమ్స్ ఆన్లైన్. ఈవెన్ మీరు ఒక్కసారి మీ ఐని ఫ్లిప్ చేస్తారు కదా, అంత టైం కూడా తీసుకోదు ఇది. ఈ ఆర్టీపీ కనెక్షన్ సేమ్ నో డిస్కనెక్షన్స్ అదే చెప్తుంది ఇక్కడ. టీసీపీ ఐపీ కనెక్షన్ డ్రాప్ అవుదని అదే చెప్తుంది. ఓకే, ఈవెన్ మీరు ఈ మిషన్ లో ఏదైతే డేటా అప్డేట్ చేస్తున్నారో, ఓ 10 టాస్క్లు ఓపెన్ చేశారు, నోట్ ప్యాడ్, వర్డ్ ప్యాడ్, యు ఆర్ డూయింగ్ సమ్ షిఫ్ట్ రోస్టర్, ఎవ్రీథింగ్ విల్ బి replicated using your fast checkpoint feature on your secondary machine. Whenever this goes down, your secondary virtual machine comes online and whatever data is opened on your primary virtual machine, that is accessible from your secondary virtual machine. ఇదంతా బ్యాక్గ్రౌండ్ లో జరుగుతూ ఉంటది. యూ డోంట్ హ్యావ్ ఎనీ డేటా లాస్. ఆ 10 టాస్క్లు కూడా ఇక్కడ నుంచి మీరు సేమ్ యాజ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ గా యాక్సెస్ చేస్తూ ఉంటారు. ఈవెన్ యూ కాంట్ సీ ఎనీ డిఫరెన్స్. ఇట్ మీన్స్ ఆర్టీపీ డిస్కనెక్షన్ ఉండదు, అప్లికేషన్స్ కి ఏం ప్రాబ్లం ఉండదు, బ్లూ స్క్రీన్ ఆఫ్ డంప్స్ ఏం రావు. ఓకే, నార్మల్ గా అయితే హెచ్ఏలో ఏంటంటే హార్డ్వేర్ కంపాటబిలిటీ లేనప్పుడు మీరు ఈ మిషన్ నుంచి ఈ మిషన్ కి మైగ్రేట్ చేసుకున్నప్పుడు, ఈఎస్ఎక్స్ఐ హోస్ట్ కి మైగ్రేట్ చేసినప్పుడు పవర్ ఆన్ చేస్తే బిఎస్ఓడిస్ వస్తాయి బికాస్ ఆఫ్ హార్డ్వేర్ ఇష్యూస్. బట్ ఎఫ్టీలో అట్లా యాజ్ ఇంప్లిమెంటింగ్ ఎఫ్టీ ప్రీ రిక్వెస్ట్ యూ నీడ్ టు డిప్లాయ్ సేమ్ హార్డ్వేర్ ఆన్ యువర్ destination host also. That is the reason you can able to you don't have any down times on your secondary virtual machines coming online. Okay, so it's not copying process, it's a replication process, we'll call it as. Okay, సో అదే ఇక్కడ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తుంది కూడా. సో ఫాస్ట్ చెక్ పాయింటింగ్ లో ఏంటంటే ఉండేది డేటా ఎటు షేర్ స్టోరేజ్ లోనే ఉంటుంది మీకు విఎం వచ్చేసేసి. ఓకే, సో షేర్ స్టోరేజ్ లో ఉన్నప్పుడు విఎండికే ఫైల్స్ కాపీ అవ్వాల్సిన నెసిటీ ఏం లేదు. ఓకే, ఆల్రెడీ విఎంస్ 2 హోస్ట్ల మీద రిజిస్టర్ అయ్యి ఉంటుంది. ఇక్కడ కనెక్షన్ లాస్ అయినప్పుడు సెకండరీ రిజిస్టర్ అయ్యి ఆల్రెడీ ఉన్న దాని మీద జస్ట్ కనెక్షన్ ఎనేబుల్ అవుతుంది అంతే. అండ్ ఏదైతే టాస్క్లు జరుగుతున్నాయో ఈ విఎంలో అవి ఫాస్ట్ చెక్ పాయింట్లో స్టోర్ అయి ఉండటం వల్ల ఇది ఎవ్రీ సెకండ్ రిప్లికేషన్ జరుగుతూ ఉండటం వల్ల మీ సెకండరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్లో మీకు అవే టాస్క్లు ఇక్కడ అపీర్ అవుతాయి. ఈవెన్ మీకు అది ఫ్లిప్ కనెక్షన్ ఉండదు. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ నేను ట్రైనింగ్ ఇస్తున్నాను, సో ఇప్పుడు నాకు పవర్ పోయింది, ఆర్ నేను ఒక డెమో ఇస్తున్నాను, మీకు ఒక ప్రోడక్ట్ మీద డెమో ఇస్తున్నాను. ఓకే, సో పవర్ పోయి హోస్ట్ ఫెయిల్ అయింది, లేదా సమ్ హార్డ్వేర్ రీజన్తో నా వర్చువల్ మిషన్ హోస్ట్ చేసిన ఈ ESXi హోస్ట్ డౌన్ అయింది. నేను ఈ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ మీద మీకు డెమో ఇస్తున్నాను ప్రోడక్ట్ గురించి. ఓకే, సో నార్మల్గా HA ఎనేబుల్డ్ సినారియోలో అయితే ఏమవుతుంది, HA ఏం చేస్తుందంటే ఎక్కడైతే హోస్ట్ ఇంకొకటి ఫెయిల్ ఓవర్ హోస్ట్ కాన్ఫిగరేషన్ దాని మీద పవర్ ఆన్ చేస్తుంది, నాకు అట్లీస్ట్ 5 to 10 minutes డౌన్ టైం ఉంటుంది HA ఎనేబుల్ చేస్తే. నేనేం చేశానంటే 5 to 10 minutes నేను ఇంటర్నేషనల్ కస్టమర్స్కి డెమో ఇస్తున్నాను, వాడు 5 minutes అసలు వేస్ట్ చేయడు, యాజ్ వెల్ యాజ్ వెయిట్ కూడా చేయడు. సో అలాంటి కేసెస్లో నేను ఏం చేస్తానంటే నేను మా VMware అడ్మినిస్ట్రేటర్కి చెప్తాను, బాబు నాకు ఇట్లా ప్రాబ్లం ఉంది, సో డెమో ఇవ్వాల్సి వచ్చినప్పుడు నాకు ఇది డౌన్ అవుతుంది ఫ్రీక్వెంట్గా హార్డ్వేర్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ వల్ల, సో ఐ నీడ్ సమ్ సొల్యూషన్ అంటే అప్పుడు VMware అడ్మినిస్ట్రేటర్ ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఎనేబుల్ చేస్తాడు. సో ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఎనేబుల్ చేసినప్పుడు ఈ సిస్టమ్ హార్డ్వేర్ ఫెయిల్యూర్ వల్ల నాకు నేను ఇచ్చే డెమో డౌన్ అవుతుంది, ఎందుకంటే ఈ ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఎనేబుల్ చేయడం వల్ల సెకండరీ కాపీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ క్రియేట్ అవుతుంది ఇంకో హోస్ట్ మీద. అండ్ ఇక్కడ ఏవైతే టాస్క్లు నేను డెమో కంటెంట్ ఓపెన్ చేశానో ఆ డెమో కంటెంట్ ఫాస్ట్ చెక్ పాయింట్ ద్వారా ఎవ్రీ సెకండ్ రిప్లికేట్ అవుతూ ఉంటుంది మీకు సెకండరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్లో. సో ఈవెన్ దిస్ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ డౌన్ అయినా కానీ నాకు సెకండరీ వర్చువల్ మిషన్ నుంచి డెమో ఆటోమేటిక్గా ఫాస్ట్ చెక్ పాయింట్ ప్రాసెస్ ద్వారా బ్యాక్ ఎండ్లో RDP కనెక్షన్స్తో నేను ఈ ప్రోడక్ట్ మీద డెమో ఇవ్వచ్చు. At the same time, this I given as a example in smaller way of example, but real time లో అయితే మీకు ఏవైతే క్రిటికల్ అప్లికేషన్స్ రన్ అవుతాయో బ్యాంకింగ్ సెక్టర్స్లో, ఫైనాన్షియల్ ఎన్విరాన్మెంట్స్లో మీ CRM అప్లికేషన్ డౌన్ అవ్వకూడదు, 24/7 అవైలబిలిటీ కావాలి అనుకుంటే they will enable the fault tolerance service on their VMware virtual data center. Okay, but this solution is very expensive. Why? Because whatever hardware is there on your primary virtual machine ESXi host, the same make model you have to be use on your fault tolerance destination ESXi host also. It means whatever data center you are creating, the same data center you have to create on your secondary data center also. అంటే మీరు ఒక 1 crore పెట్టి మీరు వర్చువల్ డేటా సెంటర్ డిప్లాయ్ చేసే కనుక మీరు 24/7 అవైలబిలిటీ ప్రొవైడ్ చేయడానికి ఈ సర్వీసెస్కి ఫాల్ట్ టాలరెన్స్ ఫీచర్ ఎనేబుల్ చేస్తే మీరు ఇంకొక 1 crore ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేయాలి. ఓకే, సో ఇట్స్ double cost. So that is the reason people won't goes to this fault tolerance feature. People accept the minimal downtime, then they go for high availability option. Okay, Shravan, hope I answered your question. So any questions? So that is what here also explaining by your DRS concept. Okay, any questions on this slide? So shall I move it to next slide? Okay. So redundant of your virtual machine disk files, vSphere fault tolerance creates 2 complete virtual machines. Each virtual machine has its own VMX configuration file and VMDK file. Each of these virtual machines can be on a different data stores. As I told earlier, shared storage is not mandatory when you enable the fault tolerance. So your primary virtual machine have different VMX configuration file as well as own VMDK files. During secondary virtual machine, copy of this primary virtual machine create as a secondary. It will have its own VMX configuration file and it will have its own VMDK files. But whatever size of VMDK files of your primary, the same size will be created on your secondary. Okay. Any questions? But vSphere 5.0, when you wanted to enable the fault tolerance, you required shared storage. But 5.5 and 6.0, you no need shared storage to deploy your fault tolerance feature for your primary and secondary virtual machines. Why? Because they removed shared storage concept for vMotion feature and storage vMotion feature. In earlier versions of VMware vSphere features, if you wanted to perform storage vMotion, you need shared storage. But 5.x onwards, you can able to migrate from local data store to shared data store to local data store. At the same time, you can able to perform the vMotion and the storage vMotion. But the 5.x earlier versions, you need to provide shared storage on your source and destination ESXi hosts of your data stores. Then only it will do the storage vMotion. Whereas 5.x onwards, you no need to present shared storage between your source and destination ESXi hosts. Without that, you can able to perform vMotion and storage vMotion. So that is the reason here your FT is creating their own virtual machine configuration files on source and destination ESXi hosts. Any questions? Okay. So I'm moving to the next slide. So this is functionality they given here. The same thing they are explaining. Okay. So I'm moving to the next slide. So vSphere fault tolerance checkpoint. We can call it as fast checkpoint. So as I told, the DC-ADC replication process. Here we will call it that same feature replication process is called as fast checkpoint. And while deploying your fault tolerance, you have to enable fault tolerance separate management network on your ESXi host network. You have to dedicatedly allocate a fault tolerance network. Using this fault tolerance network, your checkpoint traffic will be transferred between your fault tolerance enabled virtual machine. Let me show you on the lab. I think you guys already seen that, right? Let me show you anyways. Okay. When you are creating a VM kernel port group, there you can able to see a network traffic. So you have to enable FT, you have to create a VM kernel network port group. And here you have to select use the port group for your fault tolerance. Okay, using this network, your fast checkpoint replication will happen. So you have to enable the fault tolerance network. Using the network, your virtual machines, CPU fast checkpoint replication will be happen, or CPU tasks whatever are running on these primary missions. Those tasks will be replicated to using the fault tolerance network. It will replicate to your secondary virtual machines. Any doubts on this slide? So this fault tolerance you can enable from here, as well as using BasePair web client also you can able to do that. I think vCenter server connection lost. Okay, anyways, while configuring a new VM kernel on your ESXi host using the VM kernel port group, you can able to enable the fault tolerance feature. Even you have to enable the fault tolerance on your virtual machine also. Okay. Any doubts on this slide? So that is the reason whenever it got inputs, it is same copy will be data will be copied on your primary and secondary virtual machines using your FT network. Here the checkpoint fast checkpoint replication will be function. Okay. In earlier, instead of fast checkpoint, there is a different technology is there. I forgot that. In earlier versions, vSphere 5 and earlier versions, there is another feature is there. That is renamed in 5.5 and 6.0 as fast checkpoint. So I'm moving to the next slide. So during fault tolerance, how your vMotion will be function. By default, your vMotion will use vMotion network and virtual machine port group. And during a vSphere vMotion migration, a secondary virtual machine is created on the destination host. Then the memory of the source virtual machine is copied to the destination. This is normal vSphere vMotion pre-copy functionality. This is I already explained here. Anyways, here also I will explain. This is normal vMotion functionality. How it will create a secondary virtual machine on your destination host. Any questions on this slide? Okay, I'm moving to the second slide. So why this comparison is happening? In your vMotion process, your memory bitmap or memory pre-copy will be copied into destination host. That memory pre-copy or memory destination will contain the your pending tasks or whatever tasks are opened here. So your vMotion uses the memory bitmap to copy the temporary tasks which are opened on your source mission. Okay. The functionality here they are explaining. Whereas your fault tolerance also does the same thing, but it will transfer or replicate the CPU task, not memory task. Sorry. Okay. So vSphere fault tolerance fast checking point also function as a same. The symmetric multiprocessing fault tolerance checkpoint interval is dynamic by default. So the fault tolerance between these fault tolerance enabled hosts, symmetric multiprocessing is representing by your processor. It indicates processor or virtual CPU of your virtual machine. So your fast checkpoint interval or replication is dynamic by default. If you want this replication, you can able to customize it between fault tolerance enabled primary and secondary virtual machine groups. It adapts to maximize the workload performance and can range from as small as a few milliseconds to as large as several hundred milliseconds. It means, so based on the load of your fault tolerance, if the infrastructure is a small environment, it will the fault tolerance load will be or fault tolerance feature will be enabled on your secondary virtual machines immediately. As well as it is large also, it will not take the time. There won't be any time delay. Small, if it is a small or major or large environment, it takes the same time. There is no variation. Okay. Any confusions? Okay. In HADRS concept, during the event failure, if 10 missions are failed, 10 missions hosted virtual missions, ESX host failed, it takes maximum 20 to 30 minutes to migrate all virtual missions here, destination host, and powering on all virtual missions will be come back online in 20 to 30 minutes if it is a 10 missions, because your DRS has to identify load and all the things are there. Whereas if 20 missions are there in HADRS, this ESXi host contains 20 missions. It takes, once there is a hardware failure on this host, it migrates on secondary host on your HADRS enabled cluster, and it takes 45 minutes to place the virtual machines. Whereas coming to your fault tolerance concept, So primary host is down. It immediately your virtual machine will be come back online from here. It take only milliseconds. And here, irrespective of major, large or small size of this primary host virtual machines count, in secondary host, during the failover, your FT enabled secondary host, all virtual machines come back in same time. That is also in milliseconds. That is what here indicating. Whereas HADRS, it will take time to migrate and to share the load. But in fault tolerance concept, it's no need to wait for migration process, because your virtual machines are located on both ESXi host along with your VM config file as well as disk file as well as memory file, and only it transfers the temporary task process using the fast checkpoint feature that is dynamically enabled by default, and every second it will update the whatever tasks are updating here. Every second it will update. So if this host is down, in fraction of seconds this VM will be comes online. You don't see any disconnections during that time. Like that, if it is a 10 missions are there in the CSF host with enable the FT feature, it takes the same time to come back online on your destination host also. That is what here indicating. Is that clear, Mohan? So any questions? Shall I move to next slide? Okay. So I'm moving to the next slide. So apart this process, during your FT will have a database that is shared.vmft and .ft generation. These files will be migrate from your primary host to secondary host apart this virtual machine configuration. So the configuration files whatever are there, these will be copied between your virtual machines. VMX configuration files, hardware devices like disks and virtual machine memory. This will be transferred between your virtual machines layer. Okay. In ESXi host layer, the transfer files or shared files are shared.vmft file. It contains your virtual machines UUID file. During the fault tolerance process, the UUID will be changed to your secondary host. What do you call the UUID in your VMware ESXi environment? Your VM will have a UUID, right? What do you call that? In Active Directory, if you create a computer account, it will be stored in a UUID, it will generate a UUID and it will be there on your Active Directory database under computers folder, right? So like that you will have VM world that represents your UUID on your ESXi host environment. ESXi host. It's not unique ID, Mohan. It's a VM world. Okay. In CLI mode, you can able to see that. When you say VM-list, using the VIM-cmd space list, it will show you the all virtual machines VM world files. Okay. Only that information will be shared between your FT enabled ESXi host, and it contains FT generation. Okay, so that FT generation contains your virtual machines split brain condition. It is split brain condition in the sense whenever this host is down, this host has to be identify that this host is isolated. Using this split brain condition of your progened virtual machines, so your secondary host will be identified using this FT generation availability. If it is not available, it immediately bring back whatever secondary virtual machine is here. That will be bring back. Any questions? That is what here explaining. On host level, in interviews they will ask. But this is a costlier solution. This can be used in any financial sectors or banking environments. Whoever want 24/7 availability of their applications, they will implement this feature. So same thing here they explained in the diagram. Shared.vmft file it contains, which is found a shared data store, is the vSphere fault tolerance metadata file, and it contains the primary and secondary instances of UUIDs of your primary and secondary virtual machines. That is what here indicating. Any questions? Okay, I'm moving to the next slide. So enabling vSphere fault tolerance on a virtual machine. So you can turn on your vSphere fault tolerance for a virtual machines through vSphere web client or vSphere client. By right clicking your virtual machine, you can find the fault tolerance option. So in this diagram, they are enabling fault tolerance for Mike02-2 virtual machine. They are enabling fault tolerance feature. Okay. Any questions on this slide? Okay, moving to the next slide. I think it is completed. So this solution is, as I told earlier, it is a costly, nobody will be used. So that is the reason even VMware people also not explained deeply. Okay, but functionality we have to understand. Okay, but in your lab guide, step by step is there how to enable fault tolerance and how to implement fault tolerance also. But you have to use the same hardware ESXi host. Then only you can able to implement fault tolerance feature. So the next modules are vSphere replication and data protection. Shall we continue or you want break? Okay. think Sridhar was disconnected. We'll wait for Sridhar. Murli, Update Manager is available on your vCenter server. If you click on vCenter server under your tabs, you can able to check the Update Manager. Okay, I will show you once the class is over. Okay, I think everyone is back. So in this lesson we are going to discuss about vSphere replication and vSphere data protection. We'll call it in short from vSphere replication as VR and vSphere data protection as VDP. In few guys will call VDP as vSphere data protection manager. Okay, so VR and VDP will call it as. Okay, so in this lesson we are going to describe VMware vSphere replication, identify vSphere data protection requirements, list vSphere data protection sizing guidelines, describe vSphere data protection installation and configuration, and explain how to backup and restore data with vSphere data protection. These are the modules we are going to discuss now. So let's discuss about vSphere replication. So a vSphere replication is an extension to vCenter server. It provides hypervisor-based virtual machine replication and recovery. So to implement this vSphere replication, there is a mandatory requirement. So you need to provide a license from your storage vendor. So storage based replication also mandatory along with your vSphere replication. Then only you can able to implement this vSphere replication solution. So let's talk about how this function and what is this vSphere replication. So this vSphere replication will assume this is a single data center or a single site. On top of that, on this site you are having ESXi hosts, and on top of vSphere, and your virtual machines are present on this site. Sorry. So for a site layer, you wanted to enable or protect your virtual machines. For that, you need to replicate these virtual machines to another site. Using the vSphere replication, you can do that. So your vSphere replication can replicate your virtual machines data, that is virtual machine configuration file, virtual machine data file, virtual machine memory file, whatever content is there on your virtual machine. The entire virtual machine will be replicated to your target or different site. Till now we talked about host level redundant and virtual machine level redundant, but site level redundant we haven't discussed. Using the vSphere replication, you can able to provide site level replication. Even this replication within the data center also you can able to provide. Okay. So this you can able to implement from within a single site from one cluster to another cluster. In the sense, assume this is a site, you are having two clusters. Within the two clusters, you can able to enable replication. By enabling this vSphere replication, you can able to protect or replicate your virtual machine. Whereas if you see the green color VM here, from source, this is source site. From here, you are replicating the same virtual machine to your target site or target ESXi cluster. So the same copy will be replicated. During any event occurs on this site, you can able to run your virtual machine from your target site or target cluster. Like that, for all virtual machines, you can able to enable this vSphere replication, and you can able to, during the event of any events on your source location or source site or source cluster, you can able to power on those virtual machines on your target data center or target location or target ESXi clusters. So this vSphere replication provides a benefits. One is data protection at a low cost per virtual machine. It means whatever data is there on your virtual machine, that will be saved to your target host without using any vSphere data protection or any backup tools. Using the vSphere replication itself, you can able to replicate the data whatever is there on your source to target. You can able to replicate entire data. It's not like backup, taking backup and restoring here. Online it will be replicate irrespective of size of your storage of these particular virtual machines. Entire data will be migrated to your destination or target site or target ESXi clusters. But the major challenge is network bandwidth. You have to provide appropriate network bandwidth between these two components, source and destination or source and target locations. Then only your vSphere replication will function properly, because your VM will have 40 GB, 100 GB or TBs of data will be there. That has to transfer through your network. If it is located, these two source and target locations are located in different geographical locations, you have to use high-end bandwidth internet connectivity. Then only your vSphere replication will be function. Okay, only this is the disadvantage is there. But if you are using any critical services like CRM applications or banking sector applications, any critical applications you need it, then you have to use you need to implement this solution. And a replication solution that allows flexibility in storage vendor selection at the source and target sites. And you can use this while implementing vSphere replication. You can able to deploy a shared storage, and that shared storage vendor should provide vSphere replication compatibility and a license. Then only you can able to enable storage replication along with your vSphere replication. Okay. So it means the prerequisite is, while implementing vSphere replication, you need storage replication compatibility also. There are few vendors like Dell Ukilogic, small scale enterprises, mid-range environment storages will provide this replication feature as a free edition. Okay, but if you take the enterprise solutions, like if you take a NetApp and a FlexiPod environment, you have to purchase a separate license for storage level replication. It will not function along with your vSphere replication. Okay, and overall, if you are using a mid-range environment, if you wanted to implement vSphere replication, you can able to implement without any license purchasing. So medium level or medium enterprise storage, in the sense maximum 16 TB of storage box if you are using, you can able to implement storage replication along with your vSphere replication between your VR enabled source and target devices. Any questions? This is also function as your fault tolerance, but it is a very cheaper solution compared to fault tolerance. Any questions on this slide? Where we can implement this solution? So there is no limitations either. Minimum 1 GB. You are implementing vSphere replication within the data center. Minimum 1 GB is mandatory, and it can support up to 100 Gbps within the data center. Okay, between two sites you are implementing a vSphere replication. So it depends on your ISP vendor or leased line capability. It can support maximum 10 gig internet speed. And even if you are having a fiber optic cable connection between your two sites, source and target, then you can enable whatever speed you can able to transfer. But the maximum limitation is 100 Gbps. Okay. So I'm moving to the next slide. So this vSphere replication appliance. So your vSphere, to implement your vSphere replication, you have to deploy a software that comes as a vSphere replication appliance. You need to download from your VMware portal. It is a free version. 60 days evaluation copy, you can utilize it. Okay. The vSphere replication appliance provides all the components required to perform your vSphere replication. So assume this is vSphere replication, and it contains standard OVF virtual appliance, and this appliance contains by default SUSE Linux, and it's delivered the vSphere platform include with most vSphere edition. Apart Essential Plus, it available from your standard Enterprise Plus editions. This vSphere replication appliance is. And in vSphere replication appliance, you are having a management server to configure the vSphere replication roles, and it can enable managers and monitors your replication status. Okay. Any questions on this slide? So you need to just deploy this. You need to just import this appliance, and you can assign a IP address, host name, DNS, subnet, gateway, and you can able to use it. You don't need to do any configurations. Okay, minimum it require 4 GB, recommended is 8 GB memory, and 2 core CPUs are mandatory. For replication purpose, one network interface card is mandatory. Recommended is 2 network interface cards. For management vSphere replication appliance, one network interface card. To handle your replication traffic, you need to configure secondary network interface card. Okay, so moving to the next slide. So here they are explaining how your replication will be work. So you are having the source site and the target site, and the source site, from source site using the vSphere web client, you are accessing your vSphere vCenter server. From there you are connecting to your virtual vSphere replication appliance. Okay, this vSphere replication virtual appliance and the vCenter server are connected to your ESXi host agents. On ESXi host agents, your VR appliance will be push a VR agents, vSphere replication agents, and it will configure the vSphere replication VMs on your vSphere replication database. And the same information will be replicated to your target server, target site, I mean to say. It might be target site, it might be target cluster, or it might be target virtual data center. So when I will call it as target site, when I call as data center and cluster. When I say target site, ESXi target ESXi cluster, target virtual data center. When I will call within the data center, if you are implementing vSphere replication, and you will have two ESXi clusters. One is source site and second one will be the target site, target cluster. In that scenario, I will call it as within the data center. If you are having implementing this vSphere replication, I can call it source cluster and target cluster instead of source and target site. Okay, and if I am implementing replication between two different sites, I can say source site and target site. But the same solution, VR solution, I am implementing between two data centers. I can say source data center and destination, source and target data centers, I can call it. Okay. And whatever virtual machines are there, you wanted to enable replicate, you have to point the target location also, in the sense, so whenever you are implementing replication, vSphere replication, you have to provide source as well as target. Then only we can able to provide the protections to your virtual machines. Any questions on this slide? The slide represents between replication to two sites. The same scenario applicable for your virtual data center and ESXi cluster also. If you are not having queries, I will move it to the next slide. Steps for full recovery using the vSphere replication. So vSphere replication integrates with the volume shadow copy service through VM tools. So VM tools are mandatory for your virtual machines which are enabled VR solution. So right click and select the recovery of your virtual machine, and it will ask you the target folder and target resource, then click finish. Okay, this VR can easily understand if you implemented in your lab environment. Only thing is you need to configure 2 data centers. Okay, so it's a 3 steps process. So you have to select recovery option from which target you wanted to recover the virtual machine. You have to specify it, then you have to say finish. But the mandatory thing is VM tools need to be installed, and vSphere replication uses the volume shorted copy service through your VMware tools, and it will function. Okay, any questions? Volume shadow copy service, what we will call in Windows? Is, have you guys heard about volume shadow copy service? So it is available by default from your Windows 2003. So it provides a copy of your physical disk volumes. Yeah, the service, if you enable that service, it occupies some space on your existing physical hard disk, and it will share the your volumes copy. And even whenever you wanted to recover during failures of your physical volumes, you can able to restore the data from your volume shadow copy services. But there is a major disadvantage on Windows 2003 volume shadow copy services or other Windows 2008 or 2012 volume shadow copy services is your disk performance will be decreased. It has to rewrite the data multiple times on your disk. That is the reason while fine tuning or hardening of your Windows operating system, people will be disabled your VSS service by default. Okay. Here in a replication, vSphere replication, your virtual machine replication or vSphere replication uses the same volume shadow copy service using the VMware tools. It will copy the virtual machine disk file from source to target. Any questions? Okay. So VR overview is completed. I will share a document how to design what are the best practices are there which are provided by VMware. It contains limitations in detail. Okay. If you wanted to implement this VR, the best practice or where you can implement is between 2 sites only you can able to implement it. It is the best solution, but you have to provide or you have to acquire storage vendor licenses also, because storage replication is mandate to replicate your vSphere replication, to function your vSphere replication. Okay. Any doubts on VR? Okay. Let me explain the differences or comparison between your FT and vSphere replication. Okay. If I enable the FT, what happens in this scenario? Can somebody explain? So in this diagram, if I implement FT, what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Yeah, it maintains the secondary copy of virtual machines in your target site. This is one advantage. And whenever your source site is down, you can able to run the fault tolerance or protected virtual machines of secondary virtual machines. You can able to run it from your target site. Whereas there are disadvantages coming back to. Okay, so you have to use the recovery comes under picture in replication. Recovery comes under picture in replication in the sense recovery comes under picture in replication. So instead of recovery, you will use replication. That is what you meant. See that? Need to recover if primary is down, primary is down. Okay, let me explain this way. Okay, so assume this is FT implemented source and destination sites. So advantages are in this environment, in this scenario, FT enabled VMs are there. So it creates its required disadvantage is it's required same hardware configuration. You can't allocate this source or target site or target resource to any other virtual machine. It is dedicatedly you need to configure for your FT. First thing. So we are losing investment there itself. So you need to invest double cost of your actual source. That is the reason if you wanted to implement FT. And the major advantage is there is no downtime and no TCP/IP disconnections and the data won't be lost if you implemented FT. But the major challenge is you need to invest the same cost and you have to reserve that resource in your target site for your source site in FT environment. Whereas if I come back to the vSphere replication, so target site can allocate the resource to any other services. Only I need this virtual machine resources. For example, this virtual machine source site virtual machine having 2 CPs and 4 GB RAM, I can occupy the same resource on my target site. Okay, the rest of resource whatever is there in the target site that can be used by target site resources. So I don't need dedicated hardware here. I can migrate my virtual machine using replication solution to target site and I can power it on any type of hardware. But minimal downtime is required in this scenario. Okay, and also I need a replication license for my storage. But most of the vendors, mid-range storage vendors are providing replication license as a free, but enterprise customers you need to buy the license for storage replication. Okay, but whereas compared to FT, this is a cheaper solution. You don't need to buy any additional components. You have to buy only vSphere replication license. However, that replication license comes under your standardization enterprise and enterprise plus edition as a free. You don't need to buy a separate license. This comes along with your vSphere 6.0 editions as a free. So only you need to invest for storage replication, that too if you are using enterprise plus storage environments. Okay. So these are the variations, and minimal downtime is required for your VM to start the services on your target site. Whereas compared to your FT, you don't need any downtime. Okay. Sridhar, am I answered your questions, or still have any pending? Still have any left? If still not clear for other guys, I can take your office example and I can explain. Shall I, or shall I move it to the next module? Okay. It's a simple steps. You can right click and enable the vSphere replication for your VMs. Only VM tools are mandatory. So VR is completed. If still have any queries, please raise your hands. Else I can explain vSphere data protection. Shravan, Harish. Okay. So the next module is vSphere data protection. So vSphere data protection is a backup solution. Okay. Using this backup solution, you can able to backup and recovery or restore your virtual machine from one location to another location, or within the same site, or remote site also you can able to restore or backup your virtual machines. Okay, so vSphere data protection is a VMware product. Okay, so your vSphere data protection proprietary by your VMware, and it is earlier versions of vSphere 4. It is called VCB. Okay, so that is renamed in vSphere 5 onwards. Okay, so it's renamed as vSphere Data Protection, and vSphere 5 onwards they are releasing as VDP for taking backup of your virtual machines and restore your virtual machines whenever you need it. And your vSphere data protection is integrated with your vCenter server. You can able to access your vSphere data protection using your vSphere web client and vSphere client. One second, I think vSphere client you can't access this VDP interface. Only you can able to access vSphere data protection management console from your vSphere web client. Under solutions and appliances tab, you can able to see the vSphere data protection icon once you integrated with your vCenter server. Okay, and your vSphere data protection runs with the SUSE Linux, and it contains your backup solution. So that backup solution was captured from your EMC AOMR backup and recovery solution. Okay, so which backup solution are you guys are using in your environment? So which backup solution are you guys are using? No backup solution are you guys are using? Let me ask you this way. So which backup solution you guys aware? Okay. Scripts for backup. Even script need to be used some component in your Windows to perform your backup jobs. Okay, fine. So there are various backup tools are there in market. So leading product is Symantec. They provide the backup solutions for major environments. Like that, EMC also provide the backup solution using the Avamar backup. Okay. So the same Avamar uses by your VMware. Okay. And that EMC Avamar solution was consolidated and hardened, and it is integrated with your vCenter server. That consolidated EMC Avamar was renamed as vSphere Data Protection, and it is integrated with your vCenter server, and you can take the backup of your VMware virtual environment. Okay. So this is about your vSphere Data Protection. So what is the relation between EMC and VMware organizations? Any ideas? So EMC and VMware companies are sister companies. So EMC was started VMware in 1998. Okay. So that is the reason wherever you see VMware supports maximum EMC components, storage wise as well as backup solutions. They use their sister company products by VMware guys, and they do the research on their sister company products only initially. Okay. So now your EMC was purchased by Dell. Now it is renamed as Dell and EMC, Dell-EMC or EMC-Dell. That is renamed as. And your VMware is segregated from EMC services prior to purchasing Dell vendor. And even there is another company called VCE, that is Virtual Computing Environment, that is also built by three vendors: VMware, Cisco and EMC. These three companies merged and they built the VCE organization. Now Cisco is out from that company. Whatever shares are there, those shares is by EMC, and now there is no more partnership with Cisco, this VC organization, but they will use the components of Cisco. Okay, fine. So in this diagram, you are able to see your virtual appliance, and your virtual appliance mandatory is you need to allocate separate data stores for backup. Okay, only that is mandatory. It's required 4 GB memory and 2 CPUs are mandatory. For management purpose, you have to allocate one Ethernet and you have to allocate another Ethernet for your backup backup and restore process of your virtual machines. So minimum 1 GB is mandatory. Maximum it will support 10 gigabit Ethernet. Okay. So I'm moving to the next slide. So your vSphere data protection requirements and architecture is, so vSphere data protection requires vCenter server, either the Windows implementation or vCenter server appliance. So this VDP will be available on as an appliance nowadays. Okay, so Windows VDP is not available, but you can able to implement if VMware is providing as a exe file of this data protection, you can able to implement. As per my knowledge, nowadays they are providing as a appliance only. They are not providing for Windows compatibility, vCenter server data protection. Okay, and your VDP requirements are vCenter server and vSphere web client. Using these tools only you can able to manage your VDP. Okay, it's a agentless backup solution, backup and recovery solution. It needs, you no need to deploy any agent on your virtual machines or backup devices. But your data protection having a agent that will be installed on your ESXi host layer, not on your virtual machine layer. Any questions? Any confusions? So in normal scenario, you wanted to deploy a, okay. So in the first diagram, they are explaining on your ESXi host, you have vCenter server appliance and your virtual machines and agents. But the whatever agent they are representing here, that will be hosted or pushed or that is installed on your ESXi host layer, not on VM. Okay, and your vSphere data protection appliance will be installed on any of the ESXi host. Okay, so even your VDP is compatible for your Windows vCenter server as well as virtual appliance server. That is what here indicating. Okay, and the appliance will be available on only SUSE Linux VDP appliance, and you can integrate this VDP appliance to your vCenter server. From there, it captures the ESXi host from your vCenter server inventory. It will capture the ESXi host information on your virtual VDP appliance, and it stores that inventory and it pushes the it pushes the VDP agents on your ESXi host. Once it pushes the ESXi, once it pushes the VDP agents on your ESXi host, it captures the virtual machine inventory from your ESXi host. It won't push any agents to your virtual machines. Okay. So this overall process using vSphere data protection proxy, it will push the agents to your ESXi host. From there, it will fetch the virtual machine inventory and it stores on virtual VDP appliance database. Okay, so that whenever you wanted to create a job for specific virtual machine, you just connect the virtual machine management VDP management console. From there you can do that. So it is a connectivity interface between virtual proxy is a connection establishment interface between your vCenter server, VMs and your ESXi host. It's not separate component. This comes by default or along with your vSphere data protection. Your vSphere data protection proxy comes. Okay, this through this proxy only your vCenter server integration and virtual machine inventory discovering process happens, as well as backup jobs also triggers using this vSphere data protection proxy. No, we can't call it as agent. Because agents by default installed on your ESXi host. Okay, this is a interface which you can able to transfer the VDP traffic. Okay. So any other questions? So this is vSphere data protection deployment and configuration. So using this, you can able to see the management console like this. Your VDP appliance management console like this. So you will have the configuration of your VDP appliance. In this, you can able to assign IP address, host name for your VDP appliance. Then these are the mandatory service which need to be run your VDP. Core, management, maintenance, backup schedules and replication. So these are the services are mandatory to start. If any of the service fail to start, your VDP will not function. Okay, this management console of VDP you can able to access using 8543 port along with your IP address, and you have to give /vdpfe vdpfn configure. Okay, so this is, we can say, UI interface for your VDP appliance. This is management interface, how you guys are accessing vCenter server appliance using 5480. Like that you can able to access your vSphere data protection using 8543 port. But from vCenter server you can able to access VDP management console. It's not management console. You can able to connect the interface using vSphere web client. From there you can create backup jobs and restore jobs. Okay. So any doubts? So creating and editing your vSphere data production backup jobs. So you can create or edit backup jobs using this option. So this option you can create this using your vSphere web client, and you can run the job schedules every day, weekly, monthly. You can schedule it here, and when that schedule run also, you can able to schedule it here itself. And create a custom retention policy also. So the retention policy, what it will do is, after 3 times you have done the backup jobs on your environment, so your space will be fill on your data stores, backup data stores on your VDP, right? So when you configure the retention policy, after 3 times, again you have to leave the 2 last copies of your backup and keep it a master copy or latest updated one. You can configure that custom retention policy here. Let me explain once again custom retention policy. Are you guys aware of this retention policy? It saves your space on your backup data store. So configuring this retention policy, it will leave or it will destroy the older backups from your backup data store, and it will keep the latest or recent backup data in your backup data store. That is the purpose we have to configure retention policy. You are retaining a space on your backup data store using retention policy, as simple as. That retention policy you can able to configure it using your vSphere web client after connecting to the VDP UI. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Using the same vSphere data protection appliance, you can able to restore the backups also using the recovery replicated backups option. Okay. This is the screen you can able to get once you connected vSphere data protection using the vSphere web client. You can able to get these options: getting started, backup, restore, replication, reports, and configuration. Any doubts? So in VDP overall summary, your VDP appliance need to be integrated to your vCenter server. Once you integrated, it will push the agents to your ESXi host. Okay, so through that, using the proxy services, you can able to take the backup and the restore options for your virtual machines. And you have 2 interfaces. One is VDP management host. You can use the 5843 port, 8543 port. You can able to connect your management interface of your vSphere data protection and vSphere VDP protection UI access. You can able to access through your vSphere vCenter web client. Okay, and you can able to do backups, restores, and using the backups you can able to take the virtual machine level backup as well as VMDK level backup of your virtual machines, and you can configure retention policy for your data store, backup data stores to retain space. Even you can restore the virtual machines or virtual machine VMDK files using the restore option. But you have to configure, if you wanted to recover or restore a virtual machine or virtual machine disk, first you have to take the backup. Then only you can able to restore or recover your virtual machine or virtual machine files, that is VMDK files. Okay. This is overall summary of your VDP, and it's required minimum 4 GB of RAM. Recommended is 8 GB. It depends on your environment. You have to configure you have to assign the maximum RAM. It can support maximum 1 TB, and you can allocate 2 CPUs. That is mandatory. Okay. So you have to configure 2 network interfaces cards. That is one is for your management VDP management access. Secondary is taking the backups. Okay. Any queries? This is overall summary. So these configuration steps also available on your lab guides. Okay. I think this module is completed. This module also completed. We covered HA, FT, vSphere replication, data protection, and I think only these. Yeah, HA, fault tolerance, VR, and data protection we have discussed it today in this module. I mean, so overall, any questions on HA, FT, VR, and VDP? Are you guys are able to follow the differences between HA and FT? Okay, and replication, VR, and data protection. So if you guys implemented these solutions and on your labs, if you do the test, then you can able to easily understand the variations between these solutions. Okay. So only one module is left, I guess. That is resource monitoring. So resource monitoring, once you guys are implemented labs and you guys are done the HA, DRS, FT, VR solutions, I will explain this resource monitoring module. Okay. So as I told, I will be not available till Tuesday. So during this time, you guys implement whatever we discussed till now, whatever module we covered. So all the modules labs you guys has to implement, note down your queries. Okay. Ping me on WhatsApp if you needed any help. Okay. So So, resource monitoring I will complete on 10th, 11th and 12th. In this week I will cover it that. And if you guys have any queries, we'll discuss on Tuesday itself. Once you guys understand and implemented the discussed solutions, then only you can understand resource monitoring. Okay. So, any questions? Okay. So Sridhar was not there yesterday when I was discussing. So Sridhar, I am not available next 10th. Okay. Only one module is pending, I guess. That is resource monitoring. If I miss anything, let me know so that we can discuss that. Okay. So Murli, 7, Harish, so any questions? So update manager is available on your, it is visible from your, okay, from your vCenter server itself, you can able to see that. If you select the vCenter servers under the task, you can able to find the update manager. Even update manager, you can able to access, or the tab will be available from your ESXi host tabs also. Once you connect it to your vCenter server only, you can able to find the update manager tab on your individual ESXi host. If you connected individual ESXi host through vSphere client or vSphere web client, update manager not visible. Through vCenter server only, you can able to access update manager. Okay. Okay. If you guys are not questions, I will close the session. Come to any desk now. Okay. Yes, Murli. What is the challenge we are seeing here? We are not able to see update manager. That is what you wanted to ask. Okay. First, you can check under your name, are you able to see your update manager or not? So it means plugin is not available. Check here, installed plugins, your update manager is there or not. So it is there, but it is in disabled state. So you have to enable this first. Then you have to reconnect your vSphere client. Now you can see the update manager. Okay. Now from here you can able to see the update manager. But if you are connected individual ESXi host, your update manager option will not appear. Okay. Through vCenter server, if you wanted to access, then you can able to get the update manager option. Okay. So any other? Done. 7, Harish. So these 10 days you guys need to prepare all the solutions. Wherever you stuck, please let me know through WhatsApp or you can call me. Okay. Sridhar, maybe next weekend I will provide these projects. Yesterday it's already imported, but the task was not completed. Mohan, Murli, the patches are done. Only thing is that session was not closed. It took some time. Keep on showing uploading. Where? Okay, that's fine. You can check the latest patch details here. Whatever bundle you downloaded, it contains only ESXi 5.5 patches. Okay, so you have to download the ESXi 6 patch bundle, I think so. There is no speaker. At least provide permission so that I can. Okay, Sridhar, tomorrow I will send you the details. Okay, I will send the documents, Sridhar. Okay. Murli, చెప్పండి. There is no speaker. Okay, make speaker లేదా? Okay, fine. సో ఈ ఆఫ్లైన్ బండిల్లో ఓన్లీ ఇక్కడ వరకే ఉన్నాయి మీకు. సో ఇందులో ఏమన్నా మిస్ అయినాయి అంటున్నారా మీరు? So you mean to say the patches are downloading from your VMware portal or not? That is what you are asking. Okay, simple thing. Here download settings are there. If you configure these, then this communicate to your VMware portal. From there it will download. Else, as you are having offline server, you have already downloaded. Mohan, 2 minutes. Okay. So, really sorry I missed your conversation. I was chatting to Sridhar. Let me see the close yesterday. Okay, we have downloaded patches from offline, from here. We just added an offline bundle, imported patches. Okay, this is offline. You downloaded from your office and you downloaded the content. You added the device and we imported from here. So that is offline or importing patches from some other device. But if you wanted to directly download, from here you can select download now, then it starts the download latest patches, whatever is available on your VMware portal. So in this, you have any doubts? Okay. So where you are having query now? Okay. So that was stuck actually. Post importing the patches, it was stuck. So try to upload the patches once again, import it and check that. Where it is? So only what you are asking is yesterday when we imported the patches, during that time post uploading the patches also it still says that uploading after completion also. That is what you are asking. Okay, that is what I am saying. That interface vSphere web client, vSphere client interface post update the patches. It's still in hung state. Okay, whereas if you, that is the reason when I went to the vSphere web client and I verified in the patch repository, the patch repository was imported with patches or not. Okay, so when I verified through vSphere web client under patch repository, there are patches are already imported from your source device. So that's the reason we closed that session. Okay. So any other questions? Okay.